All right,
You ready?
I'm ready when you are.
You're on.
Okay. So, what we're talking about this week, next week, and the following week is it's a subject that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but it is so prevalent in our culture, it must be talked about. And that is, I'm not going to talk so much about childhood sexual abuse. I'm going to be talking more about the adult symptoms. What happens to us, those of us that have been sexually abused, what happens to us in our adult life without some form of intervention and a lot of help. And it takes what it takes. And I always encourage people to never give up, never give up, because depending on the type of sexual abuse, and it really does not, I mean, one time that a child has been abused, uh, and it's any form of abuse. Primarily, we're talking today about the effects of sexual abuse, and so I was going to say it can go on for years, or it can be one time. One time is enough to make that imprint on a child's brain, and so sometimes those memories go inward and they stay for a long time. Maybe we, we don't, we maybe know, like with me, I had a knowing about my abuse. I knew, but I didn't know. I didn't want to admit it is what it was. I just I couldn't imagine it. And so it can go inside, and what happens is the issues live in our tissues. Regardless of where we have a memory of the abuse or whether we have the memory and don't acknowledge it and do the work about it, what happens is the body knows, the body and the mind knows. And like I want to repeat this, the issues are in the tissues, are in the very tissues of our bodies. And what happens is our bodies in our adult life and our minds will begin to break down in stress related illnesses. We begin, it can show up. Now, I will say this is a long list of symptoms that I want to go over. Now, you can have these symptoms, some of them, and not have been abused. So I'm not saying that everyone that has these symptoms have been abused. Don't hear me say that. I'm saying that majority of people, ones that I have any knowledge of, and folks that I've worked with, and myself, have had adult symptoms. And those are usually the things that we go for help first. Very few people go seek help first for the abuse, and a lot of times they may see a therapist 2, 3 years before the secret is out, because with children that, and there are adults that have been abused, I'm really focusing on children and the effects that it has in us in our adult life. And because children know to keep secrets because they have been told to keep secrets. My mom would say, now don't tell your dad, this is our little secret. And my dad would say, don't you tell your mom, don't you tell the old lady, is what he called her. This is our little secret. And so a child begins that those secrets, we are the secret barrier. And we know that we are as sick as our secrets. We are sick as our secrets. So I'm going to have this woman on. I'm going to show you her book. It's called The Return Trip. And it's by my Golden. And she's going to be on next week. She's going to share a little bit about her book and about her journey and what she has done. It's one thing to come through a bad time. It's another thing about what we do with it. And this woman has taken her abuse, and I'm not sharing anything that she won't share right here in this book. But when she came to an intensive in Shades many years ago, uh, she was really, she really didn't know the extent of the abuse and how it had affected her. So it has changed her life's work. She has put in a nonprofit center for women in Tyler, Texas. So all of that is her story, but she will be with us next week. This book is reads almost like a novel. She was very truthful about her life, about her journey. And it's not a real blame game. It's her owning what the things that she did in her adult life. And how it affected her adult life. So this week I'm going to be talking about the signs and symptoms of childhood sexual abuse, how we acted out in our adult life. And next week, Maya will be on. And then the following week is going to be about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. It's about being willing to let go of the pain and the hurt. And, you know, what I tell people and what I had to do is I had to get some anger on board. And anger is what is going to help us push through that pain. So, but as long as we carry that around, that burden, it is, we carry it. Our abusers don't carry it, we carry it. And as long as we don't get into some form of, excuse me, some form of forgiveness, and I'm not saying you just immediately forgive and forget. You don't do that. You do the work. You do the work. You invite God into the work, and then there will be a time of forgiveness. So we're going to be talking about that, not next week, but the following week. So it's a 3-part series, but you can see it individually or watch all 3. I hope you'll watch all 3. Okay, I want to go over some of these signs and symptoms. Keep in mind, I'm not saying if you have these that you've been sexually abused, but if you have a lot of these symptoms, you might start thinking about it, because like I said, a lot of times the issues go inside and they lie dormant, and we may think that maybe something happened, but we don't know. I will tell you, you don't have to have the full memories to do the work. You don't have to have the full memories. You just have to have a knowing that something happened to you in childhood. Okay, so these adult symptoms, and there's many of them. One of them is headaches, recurring chronic headaches, and that also includes body aches, backache. You know, so many people that we have treated have come here with their bodies broke down. I mean, broke down in so many ways. They've had back surgeries, and I'm not saying those ailments are not real. They are absolutely real. But it's a breakdown of the body from carrying the secret and of the abuse and not doing the work around it. Because keep in mind, the issues are in the tissues. Okay, so headaches, body aches, particularly the neck, shoulders, the back area, and then stomach problems. Oh my goodness, many of abuse survivors have digestive issues. They had stomach problems, stomach ulcers. It goes on and on. And then sleep disorders. I'm not going to go into the whole story, but before I ever addressed the sexual abuse, I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. When I was in the treatment center where I worked many years ago, I'd be standing up doing lectures and I'd drop the chalk. I would have gone to sleep for an instant, or be in a board meeting, be talking, go to sleep. That's what narcolepsy is. I was diagnosed, and for many, many, many years, was treated for narcolepsy, had to go once a year up to Lubbock to have a sleep test run. Long story short, once I, and I'm not going to go into, I mean, my life became pretty unmanageable. And I never knew that it had to do with the sexual abuse until it was early on in the early 80s when we were first starting to hear a lot. And treatment centers, a couple of treatment centers were treating abuse survivors. And I went to a training, and that's when my issues began to come up. When I started treating my the sexual addiction, and I'd already gone to treatment for my eating disorder, I went to a trauma unit in Florida, stayed 30 days, and then for 12 years. And I don't want you to hear that I worked on it every day. I didn't. This is how you work on abuse. You do the work. You go and you do a good piece of work, and I'm going to give you some ideas of how to treat it. But you go do the work, and then you go out and you celebrate what you've done. And how you celebrate is you are in recovery, you know, for that you peel off a layer, and then you go live your life. And then if more pain comes up, more symptoms come up, go do more work. So I went to the 30-day trauma, and then you know, at least twice a year, I would go to a 5-day intensive, an 8-day, a 6-day, or I didn't do a lot of individual, because individual talk therapy, it is good to get your story straight. But once you get your story straight, I've had people come here that have sat in a therapist office for 10 years and talked about the abuse and talk about it and talk about it. There's different ways. It must be, the body holds the pain, the body, there is different modalities, treatment modalities, therapeutic modalities to get those feelings up out of the body. And I'll give you them. So I no longer have narcolepsy is the point. That is a big sign and symptom of sexual abuse, is because I was sleep deprived for so many years. I didn't sleep but maybe 3 or 4 hours. So sleep disorders. Another biggie is any form of an addiction, alcohol, drug addiction, eating disorders are very prevalent with. Now, I'm not saying every person early on in the field, you know, we were seeing so many people that had been sexually abused that also had eating disorders. And what we see now is maybe about 35%. That is a high percentage, but many people will break down in eating disorders. And keep in mind, it can happen in our, you know, childhood, adolescence, early adult life, you know, on college campuses, you name it. So any addiction will do. And process addictions, you know, love and sex addiction. And that's one of the reasons I'm having that I want Maya to come on and talk about her love and sex addiction and how not her, but the disease of love and sex addiction. And, you know, that's a process addiction. And other process addictions is work addiction. A lot of your survivors are, I mean, they begin, you know, that's what I did. I became a work addict. I was a human doer, not a human being. And I always need to stay busy. Well, at 81, I've slowed down, and I can either work or not work. I can even allow myself to take a nap these days. And I used to wouldn't take a nap. I had so much fear. Okay. All right. So eating disorders, work addiction, dating and spending addiction is a big one with because it's like anything that we use to try to fill up that hole in the soul. You know, and so shopping and the list goes on of addictions. Any addiction will do. And then depression. And under depression, you know, you couple that with anxiety, under anxiety is lots of anger and rage. And a lot of that anger and rage is carried in the tissues. People can just put a smile on their face and look cute, precious, and darling and do a good job. But you let something happen that can trigger that anger, and before long, it's not anger, it's rage. And that's how that was my outlet was rage. I was a rager, and by the grace of God, God did remove that from my brain. I am no longer a rager, and I don't even get angry. I mean, I can get angry at situations. Anyway, I'm not going into that, other than I'm no longer a rager. By myself, I could not stop it. But God can and will heal any area of our life that we're willing to surrender to Him. So depression, and under depression comes self-harm. We've treated many people that have had some form of sexual abuse, and they self-harm. And I will tell you, majority of your self-harmers don't harm themselves with the intent to kill themselves. They harm themselves with the intent to feel, because so many times the feelings we go numb, we have no feelings. And so many self-harmers will either cut or they'll pick at their skin. There's numerous ways, and I'm not going to give you a list of it. I'm just going to say self-harm. And what it does, it's a release. It's a release to, to see the blood, to see the cut. Now, there will be times that, they get good at it. They get really good self-harmers. I mean, if you're going to say good, and they know how deep to cut to keep from killing themselves. And sometimes, I mean, we've had one here that almost died. She cut too deeply. And by the grace of God, there was someone that was a client here that was an RN that literally saved her life till the doctors and the ambulance got here. So self-harm is a biggie. That is a big one. And it doesn't have to be anything real huge. It can be picking your fingernails. It can be biting your fingernails. I would bite mine down to where there was no nail bed. And then that suicide ideation. And there's not only ideation, but many attempts. And as sick as it sounds, a lot of times I could get through a day, I would say, well, it's going to be all right. I can do this. I can do this tonight. I can do this today. Because after all, I'm going to kill myself tomorrow, and my eating disorder, and I think the thought to kill myself, as sick as it sounds, it kept me alive. It gave me a reprieve. I can stand tonight because I want to kill myself tomorrow. And I've told this before, I started overeating at age 4 and 5 and was morbidly obese by age 8. And one morning I planned to kill myself. I planned to walk out in front of a 18-footer on the way to school and just let them run over me. And then bless my little heart, I got to thinking, it's Wednesday. I can't remember what day of the week it was, but I will say it's Wednesday. And I knew what they had in the cafeteria. And I thought, well, I'm going to wait and eat that. It was just something special I liked. And my eating disorder kept me alive another day because I put off killing myself. I had 9 serious attempts. I'm like a cat with 9 lives. I had 9 serious attempts at suicide. But I'll tell you, by the grace of God, that last attempt was so serious. Anyway, God has removed that. I'm no longer, by the grace of God, have those thoughts to kill myself. Okay, so deep feelings of guilt and shame. This is what survivors carry around, and this is the work that must be done. Every perpetrator puts the blame and the guilt on the victim, because they'll say things like, well, you shouldn't have dressed like that. Well, you shouldn't have come over here. Well, you shouldn't have done this. Well, you shouldn't have looked so cute. Well, you should have, you should have, you could have, you would have done all of that. the perpetrator blames the victim, and then they'll say things like they'll threaten them, you know, if you tell, I'm going to tell them how you got me to do this. They'll make up all sorts of stories, and then the survivor begins to believe it. They believe that that they did something to cause it. So they carry a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. And that's the work we do here, is to help people leave their crap in Buffalo Gap, to, you know, to release the shame and anger, because it has taken up too much space in the head and in the body too long. And then there, right under that, is boundary failure. Majority of your abuse survivors, they have walls where no one can penetrate that wall. They have walls where they are have no affect about anything. No one can get close to them. If they happen to have a feeling enough to attract someone and get married, that wall will come back up. They can't interact with their spouses because of that wall of fear of being abused again. They'll also use it with their children. It sounds like I have some of all of this, but I had a fear of my children getting too close to me because I did not want in any way to overlove or I mean, I was so cautious with my children about them getting too close to me. And they'll tell stories about it and how mother wouldn't let them sleep with them. I'd let them lay on the bed sometimes. I think one of them mentioned over Christmas that she got to lay on the bed 3 times in her life, and that's because she was sick. I was very fanatic about distancing myself from my children because I didn't want what happened to me to happen to my children, because the abuse didn't come just from my father. It came from both directions. Okay, fear, lots of fear, fear. And that usually is what can drive people to treatment or to recovery, is that fear, that false evidence appearing real. We get fearful of everything. We get fearful, or we have no fear. I was pretty fearless. I mean, I thought I could tackle the world. But then on the inside, I was scared to death. So that fear has to be worked out. And then nightmares. I have a list. Those of you that have been here know the list that we have on hidden anger. And as we go through that list, it really lists everything I'm talking about. It may not call it that, but it's the ways that we show hidden anger. And toward the end of that list is nightmares. And I tell people to sleep with a pad and pen beside their bed. And if they wake up during the night and having nightmares, write them down. If you can't write them down, keep a crayon by your bed. Drawing is fabulous, to draw those feelings out, because the nightmares a lot of times can give you answers. I'm not saying every nightmare is about your abuse, but they can be. So pay attention to your nightmares. There again, the issues live in the tissues. Remember that. And then people will get a diagnosis of PTSD. And I've mentioned this before, how they came to even noticed or even name or even start researching adult children of alcoholics. And by the way, many adult children of alcoholics they've all been abused in some way. A lot of adult children of alcoholics be abused by neglect and abandonment, which is one of the highest forms of abuse is neglect and abandonment. But they also have sexual abuse. So how they came up, there was a group of therapists on the West Coast that were studying Vietnam vets and the PTSD. That's how they came up with the diagnosis. And working with Vietnam vets, many of them were working with people that were adult children of alcoholics. They hadn't come up with that name yet, but they saw the correlation between Vietnam vets and adult children of alcoholics, because both of them, it's like living in a war zone. When you live in dysfunction as a child and you've been sexually abused as a child, it's like living in a war zone and no one comes to your rescue. You know, the Vietnam War was a thankless war. And that's how it is to live in dysfunction. No one honors you. No one gives you a gold medal, you know, and those soldiers came back and they were spit on. They were degraded. They were never honored as soldiers of, you know, I think they've, you know, tried to go back. And, you know, there is a Vietnam memorial in Washington now. But anyway, PTSD is a very much a sign and symptom of childhood sexual abuse. And then asthma. And this is always amazes me that people with severe respiratory problems, and now it doesn't quite take rocket scientists to figure this out. If they have a lot of throat problems and choking problems and coughing problems, many times that has come direct from the abuse, from the oral sexual abuse. So, and I want to say, this is not just women, this is men. There's been men, a lot of men that we have treated that have been sexually abused. And it's very hard for them, for the men to come forward and admit it, because they somehow, the ones that I've worked with, that you talk about carrying the guilt and the shame. Men that have been sexually abused, in my estimation and working with them, seem to have carried that burden of shame even more sometimes than women do. I mean, shame is the number one feeling that is put on survivors, but it's, I think men survivors have that guilt and shame, and they're really not given. We don't talk about it enough, I don't believe, that little boys have been sexually abused. Because a lot of times little boys will sexually abuse younger children. So it's hard for people sometimes to separate the abuser from a child that's been abused. And most of the time they've had both. They have both. And it can happen to little girls too. When they've been sexually abused, they can turn around and abuse siblings. They can turn around and abuse neighborhood children. They can turn around and abuse children they babysit with. And so this is a no fault deal. We pass on what was given to us, but we must not ignore the men that have been sexually abused. And like I said, they carry, I believe, more shame because men are supposed to be tough and suit up and show up and let things roll off their back. And so a lot of times that abuse and those feelings of abuse are so deep, dark down inside that they'll go through their lifetime without saying anything, and then will begin to break down. And illnesses, stress-related illnesses, heart problems, stomach problems, a lot that I've gone through. And a lot of times that's when the abuse will begin to come out. And they really want to tell their stories. The ones that I've worked with want to tell their stories. And I'm not, I mean, this is a no blame deal for anyone, but a lot of times therapists miss this because, you know, not all therapists, and everybody works different, but not all therapists have people write their life story. You know, I never had a therapist to have me write my life story. Never. And I would sit in therapist offices, I would do, and I did get a lot of relief going to those retreats and 30 days of trauma. I got a lot of relief, but I never once had anyone to have me to write my story from start to finish. And how I did that is I was in a 12-step program, still am, and I went to an Al-Anon and AA women's retreat many years ago. And there was a woman there that came up to me, long story short, or end of the week, and she was one of my sponsors, and she had me to write my story. But I couldn't ever finish it. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there. Writing your story is important, but don't write it if you don't have someone to read it. You don't need to carry that stuff around with you, but it's important to write the story. And sometimes it's important to write it in, every 5 years, every 10 years, or particularly when the memories come up, because it's like those memories will come up at a time that we can deal with it. And so writing your story is, and I just can't imagine looking back why therapists never had me to do that. And maybe that was some of the talk therapy. I don't know. I'm not faulting anyone. I got help when I needed it. And I'll tell you, this is the thing. If you don't seek help and then follow directions that the therapists tell you to do, you will carry this stuff with you to the grave. And there's no timetable on how long it takes to work through the abuse. As you work on the abuse, like I said a while ago, you peel off a layer, 2 or 3 layers, and then you go out and live your life. You don't stay stuck in it. Don't give the abuser that power that you're going to give your entire life over to them. But when those feelings come back, you must work on them again. You can't say, well, I've already done that. I went to that therapist. I went to that retreat. I've had people to come to many 4 days, 5 days, 3 days. And this year we're going to put more, I'd quit doing the 3 days, but we're going to put some 3-day intensives on. And mainly what that's for, it's for alumni that have come through and that they need to do another piece of work. And there's no shame in that, but when they have done a lot of work, they don't need a lot of education. They need to come do a piece of work. So we're adding that to the calendar for people, so keep doing the work until you can tell your story like you're talking about news, weather, and sports. Like you can tell your story without a breakdown, that you can tell your story without the shame just overcoming you, that you can tell your story for the benefit of someone else. And that's the thing. We don't go out and tell everyone we meet that hi, I'm Tennie and I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And by the way, how I have people to address themselves in treatment or in an intensive once they've done the work is introduce themselves as, hi, my name is Tennie and I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and I have no shame. We add that, I have no shame. We have to remind ourselves that I have no shame because I've left that shame, I've done the work on it. I no longer carry the shame. And I'm telling you, be willing, if you've had abuse and you've never worked on it, roll up your sleeves and get ready to work on it. And start with the best way to start working, and you don't do this by yourself, by the way, you start with inner child work. And if you haven't done inner child work, whether you've been sexually abused or not, if you've had any form of childhood abuse, start with the inner child work, because that's the part of us. And I'm very much a believer in the inner child and doing the inner child work. Like I said, the people in the West Coast are the ones that really started. I mean, it's been around. Elizabeth Kubler, no, not Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but oh, I can't think of the therapist's name. She's is the grandmother of family therapy. Anyway, she talked a lot about inner child, but it's important to get in touch with that inner child and make friends with that part of yourself, because we become our own abusers. We will beat that kid up because we're mad at the kid. We blame the kid. Well, if you hadn't been there, well, if you'd said no, if you'd got yourself out, if you'd done, if you'd done, if you'd done, if you had, we beat our own selves up to a pulp, and that's why the inner child work is a must. And I believe we need to start with the inner child work. And then once you get a sense of that child, that part of you is still alive and well, is that's the one that's carried the pain. And so you can begin to do the work for the child part of you. And, early on when we had the first, first adult children of alcoholics movement, Claudia Black was the very first one that started writing the books about adult children of alcoholics. Her first one was "It Will Never Happen to Me," and she was the therapist. And this is the thing about therapists: a lot of us go into the field. We don't know that we're doing it, but we go into the field for our own healing. And if you don't continue your own healing, if you work in any kind of helping profession, particularly therapy, if you don't continue your own healing, your clients will eat you up alive. And they will know because you will not be able to do the work if you haven't done your own work. You must do your own work. And like I said, one of the ways that you know that you've done your own work is you can tell your story like telling it like news, weather, and sports. That it won't have the impact. Now, there's still times, and by the way, you don't go around and tell your story to everyone. It's not important. It's not important, I mean, haven't always. I used to be so shy and bashful, I couldn't say my name, but it got to a time that I could talk. And sometimes I would share inappropriately. I would share with people that didn't need to know or wouldn't, So be careful about, and I'm talking really to survivors, be careful about who you talk with about your abuse. You don't have to go out and tell the whole world, You must have some safe people that know everything about you and love you anyway. And most of the time that's a sponsor. Sometimes it's a very, very close dear friend, but most of us have maybe 1 to 3 people who know everything about us and love us anyway. So I want to tell you the steps for recovery. And this is really the process that we do here, is that when people come in, we have them to relook at their past, to go back and look at their past. And we do this with different modalities, but we want them to get their history straight. And sometimes when they come in and do an intensive, they will have poo-pooed their abuse because maybe it wasn't as bad as a friend of theirs, or maybe it wasn't as bad as maybe it was just touching. Well, he just touched me, or she just did this. Anytime a child is touched inappropriate, it is abuse. So you look at the past, you relook, and then in doing that, you refeel, you bring those feelings up. This is why this type of work really can't be done, I don't think, in a 1-hour week session in a therapist's office. Because about the time you get into the story, then the time is up. If you have a good therapist, I say work with that therapist and then go do intensives, like come here and do an intensive. Go back to your therapist, process it. If you are practicing an addiction along with having the abuse, what I would say is give yourself a gift of inpatient treatment, because you really can't work real deep on the sexual abuse until you're clean and sober. And sobriety is being clean and sober in every addiction. And that includes smoking, that includes eating, that includes drinking, drugs, process addictions. You must get clean and sober, because the only reason we use an addiction, we're not stupid people. The only reason we use any form of an addiction is to ease the pain on the inside. So as long as you're using something to ease the pain, those feelings they're going to be blocked. They can't come up because you're trying to push them down. That's one of the reasons that this is a non-smoking unit. It has been set for 35 years since the day we opened. And, a lot of people won't come here because they can't smoke. Smoking is one of the absolute top feeling killers. You think about it. Smoking a cigarette. It's you go through a whole ritual, and we do with drinking or food or anything else. But stay with me on the smoking. You get upset about something at work, and you can see them all lined up. And I will tell you, there's not as many smokers as there used to be. Thank you. A lot of people who have worked in that, I worked in it many years. But anyway, think about it. You're at work, you're a smoker, something happens, you get upset, your boss gets mad at you, or a customer or something, you get angry. Finally, it's time for that smoke break. So you go outside and you get that, you can hardly wait to get that little white cylinder, probably with a filter. You think that filter is going to help you. It doesn't. You're kidding, you're fooling yourself. But you can hardly wait to get that out. And you put that in your mouth and you try to light it. And you're so nervous, you can't hardly get that lighter, working, but you light that cigarette. Now watch. You go, you blow, bring that smoke in, and instantly, it is an instant killer. You people that have quit smoking, I hope I don't get you back in smoking. I'm making it sound so wonderful. I do not go smoke over this, but it's an instant painkiller. And then I would see it at the Serenity House when I was there. Of course, we wasn't allowed to do any of this type of work, and I wasn't trained to do this, what we do now. Of course, I am now. But if we, we're having group and the guys, because we had all men practically, but if the guys got upset about something, well, and I'd get upset with them, because I was breaking, I'd call for a break. I'd go get a candy bar and go hide in the bathroom and eat. They'd go outside and smoke. We'd all get happy. We'd all push those feelings down and come back, and then we'd laugh and joke the rest of the group meeting. Addictions work, folks. So refill, and we want those feelings to come up here at Shades. And what we tell people, we don't care how angry you get. You can get angry at us. We invite that. We even egg it on a little bit, and we get criticized for it. My daughter Kim, she kind of stepped in and took my place as being the tough one, the confronter, and she gets, and sometimes, we can confront too much, whatever. She's gotten criticized about being the one, but there's got to be, we do treat clients good. And, I get in the place that I'm at today, I get to just go love on clients and be sweet, precious, and darling, because I know Kim's going to go in there and confront the ever hell out of them. And if clients aren't confronted about their behavior, they will continue to do it. And we let people show up here the way that we want them to show up, like they're showing up out there and in real life, because that's what their families are dealing with. That's what their employers and employees are dealing with. And they can come in here and we can just have them get massages and get rubbed on and swim and be, just love on them and treat them, I mean, just sweet, precious, and darling. And I'll tell you, they'll leave here the same way they came in. Now, we're not mean to clients. A lot of y'all are here, we're not mean to clients, but we do not beat around the bush. We call you on your stuff, and we also call you on your past. If we don't, you will continue to use an addiction, and that's what you're going to die from, is the addiction you're using. So refill, and then once you refill, once they get those feelings up, we do work here, and there's different ways that to relate, but you release, you get a release of those feelings. And then once you get a release, you feel renewed. For a little while, you feel renewed, you feel clean, you feel like you can breathe again. And you might not have been able to breathe for years. But once you start releasing this stuff from out of your body out here, you're going to feel that release. And guess what? Then you're going to start a path of recovery. You're going to recover. And what we say after people come in and do a 4-day and have done a big piece of work, go out and celebrate your recovery. Now, don't celebrate with using your addiction, but go live life out there. Go live life, celebrate life. Look at the flowers in nature, look at your children, enjoy your family, because maybe you've released all of the burden, but you've really released a lot of the burden here. When you leave here, what we say, leave your crap in Buffalo Gap, don't take it home with you. And that's the type of work people need to do. And there's different ways to release that. But talk therapy does one thing, and it will help you get your story straight. But 2 or 3 years, you're still talking and you haven't done the release work. That's what I get concerned about. So I want to give you some ideas. Breath work is, and go to a train. I'm seeing things on Facebook about breath work. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. If you're going to go do a weekend of breath work, and we're going to put one on the calendar. We've been trained, but Smallwood, I can't remember her name. There's a woman in Austin that I trained with. She is one that really developed this somatic type of breath work. It is wonderful to do this kind of work. And we used to do it all the time. And then we got doing so many different things. We didn't have the time. But now with, kind of tweaking some things, we're going to be doing some weekends. And I'm going to, Kim and I both have been trained. We're going to do some breath work. And it is a wonderful way to do release. And I was totally 100% against it. I thought, what will laying on the floor taking deep breaths do? I thought that was the most stupid thing in the world. I mean, and contempt prior to investigation. And Smallwood, I can't think of her name, but anyway, she was doing a retreat down in Atlanta. And my dear friend who has passed away, Barbara, one of the best therapists ever in the world, went down to do it. And she called me and she said, Tennie, I want you to come down here. She's the one that had worked with me on my sexual abuse. She's the one that we did training together. And then she's the one that helped me discover that it really was abuse. Anyway, she said, come down here and do this weekend with me. And she told me what it was. I said, that is the biggest bunch of BS, and I'm not going to pay my money to do that. And she challenged me and she said, okay, I'll pay for it. If you don't get anything out of it, I'll pay for it. I said, it's not the money. I'll buy your plane ticket anyway. I went. Jacqueline Smallwood is her name. And she actually did the work with me. And I don't know if y'all believe in a rebirthing process, but I had one. I had one of the biggest pieces of work that I've ever done in treatment. It was a complete release of so many things. It was a rebirthing process. So I heard she was going up to Dahlonega, Georgia the next day no, the next Friday, and she was going to do a 10-day retreat. And I told her, sign me up. I'm coming up there. And she said, it's been full for a long time. There's a waiting list. I said, I am coming to that. I am coming to that retreat. She said, the only thing I know, call my daughter Brenda in Austin and talk to her. She doesn't. So I called Brenda and she said, well, Mrs. McCarty, it's closed. It's been closed for a long time. And I said, now, Brenda, and called me Tennie, I have got to come. I am coming. If I have to just wash dishes or, help Jacqueline do something, I am coming to that retreat. And she giggled and she said, well, probably won't be this one. I'll ask Mom or Jackie, she didn't call her Mom, if there's something you can do, like help with the artwork or something. Anyway, she called me back in an hour and she talked to her mom. In the meantime, they had had someone to drop out. If you don't think that was a God deal, he had moved to another time. Something came up on his schedule. And I was down there and I went through that 10-day training, but it was more 10 days of my own personal work. We all did our own personal work. But anyway, I am a big believer in breath work. We're going to put it on the calendar. Remind me, Cam, to put a breath work weekend. And then do somatic body work. You can also do that in breath work. And work with a trauma-informed therapist. If your therapist has not been trained in trauma, bless their heart. I mean, they can help you in other areas. Get someone that is trained, a trauma-informed therapist that has been trained to treat sex abuse. Okay, CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, EMDR. My daughter Karen is doing EMDR, and after I did all of the work that I did, they just came out with EMDR. I went down again to Austin and did 8 sessions, and that closed up I've never had to do any more work. I mean, that was a completion. I'm a big believer in EMDR. Another thing is massage therapy. But if you're going to go to a trained massage therapist that understands trauma and can work with your body, be good to take a therapist with you, because if you're early into it, those feelings will begin to come up, and you can do a piece of work right there with it in the massage room. Also, Rolfing. Rolfing is a form of massage, but it's deep tissue work, and they can go really deep. And so if you go to do Rolfing, and it's about releasing that poison out of your body, but be sure and tell them if it hurts, because they will go deep. But Rolfing is good. And continue to do the work regardless of, and you don't have to do it every minute of every day, but you go do a piece of work and then you go live your life and you follow directions. You do journaling, but you notice about yourself, what triggers you, what and don't ignore the triggers. There are triggers. I don't have time to give you all the triggers, but you know them. If you're an abuse survivor, you know what the triggers are and what those triggers will do. Something will happen in your body. You'll get a feeling to come up in your body. I'll just give you one. I mean, I can smell, and not anymore, I'm past it, but used to, I could smell someone mowing grass, and that would trigger. I'd be right back into that abuse. So sights, sounds, light, smells, different triggers will take you right back to the abuse. And all that tells you is you have more work to do. It's not bad, awful, and wrong, but I will tell you, I can, smell the grass mowing today. I love to smell it. There's different things that, that used to trigger me, no longer trigger me, but you must do the work. And if you continue to have triggers, all that your body is telling your brain is there's more work to do. call somebody. So next week, Maya will be here and she's going to talk about, she's really deep honest about what happened to her and how long it took her to get help. And the oldest person that I have treated for sex abuse, we've treated them for bulimia, and I don't know how the woman lived, but the oldest has been 78, a 78-year-old woman that carried severe abuse her entire life. And did so many of the things that I've mentioned, damaged her body in so many ways. And she's, I guess she's in her 90s now. She's still living. So, all right, there is hope and there is freedom with recovery, but you must work on this stuff. We've got some time. I'm going to open it up for questions or for comments. And who would like to start? I want to welcome Elizabeth Edwards. I've heard some good things about you. I look forward to meeting you. And I hear that we're going to get to be on a cruise together.
We are. Hey there. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Oh, I took tons of notes and you and I we play on the same field. So, yeah, I'm so excited. Hello, everybody. It's really nice to be here and thank you, Bob, for inviting me. Bob's kind of put Tennie and I together for some cruises. So I'm so excited to get to know you now and then to be able to get to know you more later. But yeah, it was funny when you started talking about breath work. I told Bob I'd love to go to that meeting, but I do a morning practice. I'm a breath work convert, and I felt the same way you did about. Oh yeah, in fact, I during COVID, I'm a musician and a songwriter and recording artist, and during COVID, I couldn't perform live anywhere, so I took a deep dive into some coaching modalities to help people with recovery. And so anyway, I'm just so glad to be here. And yeah, I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've got 37 years, clean and sober. Yeah, and I could relate to, yeah, avoid the number one avoidance patterns for me have been really, early on was drinking and drugging, and then I could relate to all the other process addictions that we kind of find ourselves coping with. And that early childhood abuse is just, yeah, we become that inner abuser. And I think until we start really doing that timeline work, which is what I decided to jump into during COVID, and I'm so glad I did. And then I got into the modality of helping other people with it. So you and I are going to become fast friends, I can tell you already.
I think so. And tell them what you do on the cruise and the type of music you do.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I am a singer-songwriter. I started writing music when I was 13 out of the clear blue sky. And by the time I was 16, I had a voice that stood out in my high school music classes and stuff, which I gravitated towards during the middle of this, crazy. Both my children are untreated adult children who had a lot of abuse and abused people. So that's kind of what I'm coming from. And then, but by the time I was 16, I was winning international jazz festivals and all kinds of awards. By the time I was 17, I was a high school dropout with a big drug and alcohol problem. Got sober at 25. Those years in between were real rough, did a lot of self-abuse. And I've been working on my recovery for years, but I didn't come back to music until I was about 7 years into my recovery because I just associated music and addiction, and I was trying to get away from my addiction, and I had built up this complex equivalence that if I do music, I'm going to do drugs. So I put those two things together, and I was able through recovery to pull that apart and to actually see that music was a very healing thing, not just for myself, but for others. So what I do with music today is I perform. I'm a recording artist. You can find me on every platform known to man all over the world. And I do a lot of advocacy work with it. I've been very involved with the awareness around the opioid crisis in Washington, D.C. I ended up I'm currently serving on the board of directors for Faces and Voices of Recovery. And that's a really wonderful organization that helps advocate for people in recovery at the national level. And I sing all over the country, and I'm going to be on the cruise, and I'm going to be singing and speaking and sharing my story and my tools and all the good stuff that we do and my songs. And I've got a new song coming out called Hero, which is a dedication to the people who have loved people who they've lost to addiction, and the advocacy and how they've transformed their pain into purpose. And that song is coming out in the very near future. So super excited about that. Anyway, that's enough about me. I want to hear about some other folks, all you beautiful people here. And thanks, Bob. And so excited to get to know you, Tennie.
So good to have you, and look forward to the cruise and you singing, and then singing with my friend Misty. I think Bob's told you some things about her, and she will be with us. And so, Bob, what do you have to say about this? Thank you, Barbara.
Oh my goodness, Judy, what a fantastic share today. I'm so moved in so many ways by what you said, and I'll open by saying I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I didn't know intellectually why I was trying to kill myself. I just knew that I had a problem, and even when recovery was introduced to me, and I knew that the truth was exposed to me. It took me 10 years to get here, and I really didn't know in many ways what I was afraid of. So I had ideas about sexual abuse also intellectually, and I worked through issues in therapy, and that work brought up more issues. So I resonated with what you said about intensives and about work that can go in that is steady and has more than just an hour session periodically with the therapist. So I did that too. And after lots and lots of work, I started second stage recovery work in 1991, got sober in 1988. I actually didn't get to the deep feelings about my sexual abuse until 6 years ago. I had a couple of experiences which are too long to discuss now, but happy to share them with anybody. And I was in a therapy session with my spouse, and she asked me to describe what I had shared with her that morning, which was not intended. It just came up and came out. And when I expressed my feelings to the therapist, the room turned completely black. I felt like I was in a hammock. I didn't know if I died. And the therapist and my wife said, "Stay with the feelings. We love you." It sounded like that sound was coming from a mile away. And I could barely connect to it. And a little bit slow, I came back into the room, and I had an eruption of emotion and crying that came from the bottom of my feet, flew right out the top of my head, and sounded like whooping cough for 2-3 minutes before I actually got grounded again. So I say this openly to men in the room. It's not that women don't have the same depth of what I just described, maybe for some of us even more. Men do not often openly share about their abuse. I've worked with a lot of guys, and it takes a lot of trust and honesty and step work sometimes to even bring things to the surface. So I'm an advocate for men to be able to, if you relate to any of the symptoms, if you relate to anything that Tennie talked about today, please talk to somebody about it. Talk to your sponsor, talk to other men, and be good to yourself. That's what I had to learn to do because I spent so many years not being good to myself. It's probably why I'm in the profession I'm in, because like Elizabeth shared, I had to separate that out and then begin to work in purpose. Thank you for listening to all of that. I just felt so moved to share because of what you shared today, Tennie, and it's a long process and a worthwhile process. That's it.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Bob. All righty. Do we have anyone else that would like to share? Megan.
Hey, I can't find my raise hand button for some reason. I
was
joined a
gonna
little
call
late.
Anyway, so
What's that?
I was going to call on you anyway, so.
You were, well, not surprised. Um, Bob, I was really moved by your share just there, and I would love to hear your story. And I just want to say thank you for speaking up because there's something really powerful hearing a man share his experience. I I am in a place right now of I know there's more to work on. I'm working with a new therapist, and in my last session had some pretty big stuff come up that was really like, oh, well, it's time to do some more work. I didn't know that was there. So I'm so glad I was able to join in. I wish that I could share more. We are Camp COVID right now, and so everyone's here at home together. But it looks like we are working on this topic for a couple weeks, I think maybe. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. And I wonder, Tennie, if you have experience with or what your thoughts are on neurofeedback as a modality.
Absolutely. In fact, we used to do it here at Shades. And I think we may start back doing it. I'll tell you what it's really good for, and that is ADHD with children.
Yeah.
And you know, it's been quite a while. The director of the Texas Alcoholism Drug, anyway, when he retired, he really got into neurofeedback big time. And this is a man that had many, many years of recovery from alcoholism. And, you know, they're usually the ones that are going to shy away from something like this, you know, but he went into it full on because even after many years of sobriety, it helped him so much. So yes, it's good. I believe in it. And the ones that we saw here, the ones that it helped the most were abuse survivors and children with ADHD.
We did do 20 sessions for that very thing. And it's interesting to see the brain mapping beforehand and afterwards to see how the brain has changed from it. It was a difficult thing for us to stick with, but I'm interested in trying it myself. So yeah, thank you. And definitely want to learn more about this breath work too.
Yeah, good. Well, we're gonna put one together and we'll put it on the calendar. Hope Kim's listening because she's got to get the music together. All righty. So good to see you. Let's see. And hope all of you get better.
Chris has
Thank
his
you.
hand up.
Oh, Christopher. Good morning, Christopher. I was wondering if you'd put your hand up.
Good morning, everyone. I have not, to my knowledge, suffered sexual abuse myself, but many people close to me have. And actually, just recently, someone very close to me has been doing some massage therapy work with I don't know where this massage therapist came from in Little Mountain Home, Idaho. You know, we're only about 15,000 people here. But she has just a wonderful sense of releasing the tissues. And this person, and I have permission to share, this person was recently in massage, and she's using it to help address sexual abuse. And the massage therapist was working on a particular muscle group, and in that moment of tension and release of the muscle group, you know, the deep tissue, She had a flashback, came up off the table because of how strong the reaction was. And it is amazing to me that our bodies physiologically store so much, and that so much gets resolved as those things are released. So I really, it's certainly been a learning experience for me to walk in recovery circles and to have people close to me who are sharing their recovery stories. It's a big privilege, and it helps me to appreciate the depth of what has happened to us. The various things that we've chosen to use are just the symptoms, but what has really happened to us and healing. And I've started pushing healing in my men's group at church and talking about being united in a way that allows us to have a support group. And that's resonating with a lot of the men in our men's ministry. I see it. I had a fellow last night. We were just in the car, and he knows a little bit of my background, and he opened up about some of his issues and struggles. And what am I getting at? What I'm getting at is it's a privilege to be a part of this, and particularly in sexual abuse. I am surprised at how much is stored there, and I feel a level of compassion for many in my life who either have come forward and I have found out, that they had experienced that, or whom I suspect were sexually abused. My own mother being one of those. She has some, not extreme, but some narcissistic tendencies, and the way she reacts to a lot of things, I have compassion and love for her that I didn't have before. It's been a great process. I think that's all I got to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Christopher. Yes, the body knows, and that is a prime example of what I'm talking about with deep tissue body work, Rothing. I'm glad she got a therapist that really knew what she was doing, and that is, but that's a prime example. That's what I'm saying, that the body knows and stores those feelings. And all righty, one more. I know we're running out of time, but Sherry, do you have anything?
Well, I'm interested in the breathing thing you're talking about for sure. The breath thing that you were talking about. So when you get it on the calendar, let me know. Because I'm having to go back to therapy again because some things are starting to come up. So, but it's not, putting me under the table or anything like that. So yeah, but it's just some things that have started to come up that I need to work on. But I agree with you, and because I've been out there so many times. So if you're on here, there is no end to this work. I know that. It's not like you've done it and you just keep, you're done. It's kind of like the same way with Al-Anon, you never graduate. And so, and it's just, we still carry it no matter what. It's still there. But you don't, like you said, you don't let the abuser have control over you anymore. And that's my goal. And I feel like I've gotten real close with that. So, and it was just, I don't know. Right now, my head is just all this talking. There's a lot going on right now in my head. So.
Okay. So, have you already made an appointment with your therapist?
I have one tomorrow.
Great. Write all of this down, everything that's come up, write it down, and see you're doing exactly what we recommended. Do work, go enjoy your life. If pain comes up, do more work. You keep doing it, Sherry, and you're going to continue to get well. I promise you. I so promise you. And we will let y'all know about when we put the breath work on. I'm gonna have to twist Kim's arm and talk her into it. She is starting back to school, but I bet maybe she'll do, because it's only a 3-day, it's a 3-day weekend. And if any of you have ever done it, if any of you ever done Jacqueline Small's model of breath work, okay. It's more than, I mean, it's a really good modality, and anyway, we'll let you know more about that. And we've got other weekends coming up. We're going to do the Breaking Free weekend, and that is a 3-day breaking free from codependency. And if anyone wants to do that, let me know, and I don't know that I've put one on the calendar, but I would if we get enough people that want to do it. And I'm going to keep doing it. I would like to keep working as long as they can get me in a room, and I'm not in a wheelchair yet. I'm still walking, so that's good. I do want to mention one other thing, and I know that we are way over on time, but Bob has an all addiction meeting on Saturday at 12:30 Central Standard Time. And I don't know if Cam, if we could put it up, or if you could put, I don't know anything about how to put anything on.
Yes, ma'am, we'll get it out.
All right, because it's really a really good meeting. It's a good format, lot of long-term recovery. And so y'all have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week along with Maya. And if you know of anyone that might want to join us, she's a really good speaker, and she will be talking about her book, but mainly about her journey. I mean, in the book is about her journey as an adult and how she was affected by the abuse. And that's the thing, we can be affected and have problems in different areas and not know that we are having, that it has any connection to the abuse. That is the kicker here, that, problems can come up in our life and we will not know that it's about the abuse. So breath work helps with that, and Breaking Free weekends. Okay. All right. So we will see you next week. Love all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tennie.
Tennie.
Penny. Bye.
Bye, Cam.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye. Yep,
What is him doing?
I'm gonna go here.
We're staying on
Just
to Bob. Oh.
give me a sec.
Misty?
Sorry, there we are.
Yeah, I think y'all are good. Everybody else is out.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Edwards needs to unmute. There she goes.
There I am. Here I am.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, it's